Okay, I feel like just kind of speaking my mind today. I kind of wanted to talk about happiness and fulfillment because apparently this has been sort of the theme of the entire year. This year it's been quite a year. But anyways, so I figured why not kind of go into this tangent today. I've come to the conclusion any kind of bad choices I've made in my life, or just not good choices, have been due to me not having a very clear idea of what happiness is and what fulfillment is. Most people try to sell you this model that the thing that's gonna make you happy is one of three things. A romantic partner, a career, and lots of money. And it's good to have those things. I'm not gonna, take a big dump over all of that and be like, oh yeah, that stuff's stupid, you know? But I feel like chasing those things, it's nice. And then, like, once you have it, it's kind of just like, well, now what? The problem is that a lot of people have tried to sell this idea that you have to earn something to have any form of self-worth. You have to have, a degree or a diploma with your name fucking pasted on the front of it and given to you, and then you're fucking worth something. You have to have a lot of friends. You have to have, a great relationship with a good partner, and then you're worthy. After the fact, you're worthy of whatever. But if you don't have any of those things, you can go fuck yourself. You're not fucking worth anything, And so, like, this idea was really just kind of ingrained into my head for a long time, And, honestly, even to this day, I feel like I have to avoid certain people that, like, really just honestly won't shut up about it. Honestly, like, it sucks to say that, but, I don't really associate with certain people anymore just because, like, that's literally all they talk about is, like, so where did you go to school? What kind of job do you have? What's your job? What's your job title? What kind of career do you have? And, like, it's a good thing, right? But sometimes it's just like when that's all you talk about, when that's like literally all that consumes your mind, I don't know. Like, it's just, are you honestly happy? And this has nothing to do with like being proud of your job, but it's more so like when you feel like you have to kind of dictate, like, oh, what are you doing with your life? What kind of job do you have? That doesn't sound very important. And it's just like, literally no one asked you. Literally no one asked. I think another thing is that I had, specifically my Grammy, God bless her heart, she was always obsessed with safety, right? And this is very understandable when you become an adult, because the one thing I was not prepared for is, like, when you become an adult, you're faced with so much uncertainty, and that was the thing that kind of, I really wasn't prepared for. I mean, I feel like I should have been, but yeah, a lot of uncertainty comes into your mind that you don't really think about when you're a kid. Obviously, like, as far as like financing and all kinds of different stuff. More importantly, there's like a huge obsession with status, right? And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But again, everything is like some kind of game with status. Like, oh, do you have this kind of education that makes you more educated and all this other stuff? Do you have this job that makes you this certain amount of money? Do you, like, how many followers and subscribers do you have? And everything is just like, the more the merrier, the more the merrier, the more you marry. If you don't have more, like, you don't have enough, you don't have it. It's just very, like, it's very kind of forced upon you, right? I think that was like the main thing that fucked me over is like if I want to be loved by people, I have to have more. I have to achieve more, I have to be more social, I have to be more outgoing to have people love me. Because as long as I'm quiet and shy, no one's going to love me. Like, fucking no one. And that was kind of, this idea that fucked me over for a while. And something else I've noticed? The most prosperous people I know, I'm not joking, like, a good number of the most prosperous, I can't say everyone. I can think of a few people. The last, like, few times I encountered them, they, like, complained a lot. I'm just saying, I'm not gonna say names, but they complained a lot about how unhappy they were. And mind you, I'm talking, like, very educated and smart people, very prosperous, very wealthy, too. And they have good connections with people, good relationships, they had it all, and, like, still, they, like, just found things to, like, tick them off. And it kind of boggled my mind a bit. I'm like, dude, you have everything. Why are you like not happy, you know? And that made me kind of start to question things. It's like this isn't like, so these people are not happy. These people have almost fucking everything and they're not happy. What the hell is going on here, you know? Like something is not right with this picture. And look, I get like happiness can be like a temporary thing or a momentary thing. It's not always like a case of some kind of cataclysmic event happens and you're just happy for the rest of your life until you die and everything's this like big happy ending, you know? But it was weird. The way they talked about their lives it didn't sound like they were satisfied. While, like, mind you, a lot of these people, I'm not in their lives, I don't know what they have going on and all that stuff. But needless to say, that made me question things a lot, you know? And it kind of made me question if I just had this very distorted picture of what happiness was. Also, when you're extremely unhappy, it's very easy to antagonize people and to get in this very, like, everyone's out to get me kind of mentality, right? And that was, like, you know, that was something I struggled with when I was a lot younger, and it took me a good amount of time to kind of, like, slowly get out. So I feel, oh my god, my camera. I feel like when you're like ruminating on certain people and you feel like you have to like create a list of people that like did you wrong, I feel like it's almost as if like you're not being occupied enough. And like I don't want to say like, oh, you antagonize people because you're bored and you have nothing better to do with your life. But at the same time, maybe that kind of is the case, you know? And I feel like, you know, these past couple years I've been dealing with a lot of, like, ruminating and, you know, like, kind of mentally antagonizing people and just being like, oh, this one person said this one thing and did this one thing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's been, like, my number one affirmation of the year is it doesn't matter. Because when you're bored, you give meaning to such useless fucking things. But again, it's like, another thing is like, you get sold this idea that you have to constantly one-up people. You have to constantly, oh, I have to be better than this person at this thing. Oh, this person's too good, that takes away from my value, so I have to one-up them, I have to be better than this person. I guess there's nothing terribly wrong with that. Okay, it's one thing if you just want to get really good at what you do, so you're constantly trying to perform better, and you're just like, okay, how can I do this better? But when everything becomes like this one-up game, and you feel like you have to like antagonize people to create this idea that it's me versus them, more than anything, it creates a lot of like mental disturbance almost. Like you don't feel at peace with yourself because you're just like, this person has to... This is kind of dramatic. This person has to die or something. I need to put this person in their place. And most of the time, I'm not going to say all the time, but most of the time, that's very compensatory? That might not be a real word. It's very, like, compensating behavior. I feel like 9 times out of 10, like, anytime I've done that, it's just such a, like, waste of time, and it contributes to a lot of mental disturbance to feel like you have to, like, create a mental picture of someone being like a bad person, and it's not even like really worth it because you've spent so much time antagonizing this person only to facilitate this perpetuating unhappiness. And for what? So this year's been a fuck in the ass because I know what I want to do with my life. I've always known what I wanted to do with my life. Anytime people ask me though, I'll say I don't know. Not because I actually don't know, but because I don't want to answer their question. You know, because I would always have this fear that they would say something that would, like, discourage me from pursuing that thing, so I just don't say it, right? Another important kind of factor that came into play was relationships. I've struggled with making friends my entire life. You know, there were successful friendships, but of course, I guess it's pretty normal. Not a lot of them lasted very long, you know? And that, like, for the longest time was, like, a huge void. And I just wanted to have, like, a really big social circle and just to feel, like, really connected with people. And it was something that, like, it really messed me up emotionally for a long time. So I think for the longest time that kind of created this void and this very like deep sadness for a long time. Obviously because I had this idea that not having friends took away from my value. And because, you know, there wasn't this big group of people that loved me, then I didn't deserve to be loved in that way. And that really, like, which I realize now is not true at all, but that was genuinely, like, how I thought of the whole situation. I just realized there was this void of having, like, a circle of people that loved me. And it made me question myself a lot. And obviously another important factor to that is, you know, romantic relationships. I will definitely say the first, like, few men definitely acted a lot like my dad, and that probably was not a good thing. But there was a lot of good that came out of it, because now I'm with this amazing man who loves and adores me, you know, and obviously I love and adore him. But anyways, there was a lot of good that came out of that because I learned what a real man is not. I feel like the first few men I was with, you know, they were the kind of men that had to be like macho all the time and, you know, very dominant kind of people. And they felt like it was necessary to make other people feel small, you know, kind of almost acting like a bully, quite frankly. I guess this is pretty common for females that grow up without a dad, but you kind of become oblivious to the fact that, you know, how they treat women is not very good, you know, and then like one day you're like, wait a minute, that's not right. But I'm happy to say those relationships did not last long. At the time, I thought that meant I was screwed, but I was wrong, and I ended up with an amazing partner, so thank God for that. Another kind of like mental distortion I had was I think a lot of like my mental illness stemmed from, you know, my parents getting a divorce as a kid. Actually, yeah, that was when like a lot of like disturbing things kind of kicked in, like when I was around the age of like 8 and 9 that I didn't really tell people about. But the main thing that kind of messed me up was this idea that because I didn't have my dad, like my life was screwed, basically. Because my dad wasn't in my life, there were a lot of ways I felt like I didn't have what most people had. And I guess, like, for the longest time, I didn't really understand, like, why that was, you know? Because at the same time, it's like, having an absent father is not an uncommon phenomenon, unfortunately. But, you know, regardless of that, like, there was just this huge void, you know? There was this idea in my head that because my dad didn't love me and my siblings enough to stay, you know, then like why would anyone else love me? Like what reason would anybody else have to want to stick around? That was like honestly like a reoccurring thought almost on like a daily basis. But anyways, you think that having an amalgamation of a bunch of grandiose good things, you think that having an amalgamation of like good income, a good relationship, a bunch of friends, you think that having all those things is gonna be the thing that makes you ultimately happy. It creates this very desperate mentality. You're just constantly desperate for validation, desperate to feel safe. You're desperate to feel safe in your own self, your own personality, and financially, and in your career, or in your job, whatever. You want to feel like you want to have a degree not just because it's going to get you a good job, but so that people can approve of you and people can have this idea of you that you're smart and that you know what you're talking about. And you have this idea that if you don't have that piece of paper, then you're not smart and you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't deserve to have your voice be heard or whatever. And you're just having that mentality shoved down your fucking throat all the fucking time by people that are not happy. And then you kind of realize there's something not fucking right about this picture. There's something not right about this picture. And more importantly, I had this idea that I had to be noticed by people. I had to be validated by people. I have to have people know that I exist to be worth something. And it created this very, like, self-conscious, insecure kind of persona. And, like, I would cry all the time because I felt like people didn't know I existed. And then one day I thought about it, you know, and I kind of finally realized no one really actually has to fucking acknowledge that you exist at all. Like nobody. No one actually has to. There's no reason to get offended when someone doesn't acknowledge that you exist because you're not actually entitled to that in the first place. Your parents don't even actually have to fucking acknowledge that you exist. Your partner doesn't have to acknowledge that you exist. You know, being polite is cool and all, but it is just a construct at the same time. It's, you know, and I just feel like the less I feel entitled to that, I don't feel like I need it as much because I recognize, like, well, I don't have to have this person, like, know who I am. I don't have to have that. Like, it's not a necessity. If, like, you know, if this person doesn't say hi to me or ask how I'm doing, it's not a personal thing. It has nothing to do with me as a person. They just have their own priorities in their own life, and that has nothing to do with me. And the more you constantly keep that in your head, it's just a lot easier not be so personal about it and not be so defensive and feel like it takes away from your own self-worth. And having stuff like that is fine. I really don't want to, like, this to be a rant about, like, how people are so material. Oh my god, it's so evil. I'm not like that, honestly. But at the same time, I feel like chasing stuff like that and being desperate for stuff like that contributes to me being further just more and more unhappy every day I fucking live. And it gets really old, you know? So, anyways, there's this book I'm, like, in the middle of reading. It's called Directional Living by Megan Hellerer. But it kind of puts some things into perspective, which is that, you know, we have this idea that if we get to a very specific destination, then we'll be happy, but in the midst of chasing that destination, it's kind of like the cheesy saying, like, you have to remember the journey. Remember the journey, not the destination. Which, like, I'm making fun of it, but that is kind of the case, is that time kind of flies by, you know? And you're just like, man, I could have, like, spent a lot of that time just, like, enjoying what I had. And instead, it's not even that I'm just, like, mad or upset or unhappy, but I feel, like, worried all the time and very uncertain, you know? You think that you're chasing happiness and fulfillment, but you're really just chasing certainty. Certainty is usually the case, you know? It's what most people want, is certainty that they'll have the money to get by, certainty that people will know that they exist, certainty that they'll be loved by people. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that, you know? But you know, I've really questioned, like, maybe I should stop making my videos so, like, personal, but I feel like videoing myself talking is way more refreshing than, like, writing it down or even typing it and putting it on, like, a different platform. For me, this is just, like, significantly more refreshing, and it gives me a lot of clarity. But anyways, so the truth is that I don't have all the answers. I really don't. What I can't stand is when people try to make it out to be like they have all the answers and they have a one-size-fits-all solution, you know? I can make suggestions, I can tell you what has worked for me in the past. I have to make a very conscious effort to not be one of those people that tries to be like, you know what I think? You know what I would do? And I want to be less of, like, telling and more like suggesting and not trying to shove my 2 cents down people's throats all the time, you know? So I don't have the answer, you know, for what happiness and fulfillment really truly is. But at the very least, I'm recognizing what's definitely not working, you know? So that's a start, you know, that's a good thing. But anyways, I hope this was relatable, hopefully. I hope this was refreshing. I hope this was enjoyable to watch. So, anyways, thanks for watching.